Well, hello everyone and welcome back to the end of 2019 in our lawn. So today, what you're watching right now on November 24th is the outdoor portion of what I'm going to call the year in review. So we did a bunch this year. I have some footage from earlier in the spring when we walked around, and I just want to give a little tour of the outdoor to match some of that beginning of the year footage and really talk about where we've come. Yard which shall not be named. Least amount of work done, least amount of anything done. We did nothing over here, in fact, except put leftover pre-emergent here in the spring. So really nothing. The only thing that we did is put these wood chips down around the two trees. Not in even close to a perfect circle or anything, but just made it look a little bit nicer, a little bit tidier over here. And that is literally it for the side yard.
So to just recap a little bit further, kind of what we had in the side yard, this was right in the spring as the snow was starting to melt off. There really wasn't a whole lot of grass in through here. You really couldn't even tell where the bottom of the trees ended and where the lawn started. It was in tough shape over here, and realistically it's still in pretty tough shape over here just because we have limited time and resources. So this would have been kind of in the prime of the season in terms of condition of the yards. You see it's very green, but again, this area is still just weeds. The hashtag weed stripes. Real Old Dad's got his dirt stripes, and I unfortunately have my weed stripes here in the side yard. It's just not been treated yet. We haven't done anything over here. Someday, but it's kind of off in the distant future. And then probably the biggest change, you would have seen the wood chips now around the trees. I didn't really do any real landscaping there or anything like that. But we just hauled a bunch of these wood chips around, mostly into the garden area. But I also used the extra that I had to at least put some new kind of mulch, if you can call it that, in and around the trees to just make it look a little bit better than what you would have seen from the walkthrough, where there was just weeds growing up through like pine straw and dirt. So this was literally the extent of effort that was put into the side yard.
So along here, the first video on my channel actually was me digging away at this section of yard right here, getting trees and overgrowth and brush out of there. And then as a part of the kind of major backyard overhaul, we got down all of this right here. This was super overgrown at multiple points throughout the year. You would have seen me weed whacking it down. You would have seen just this in kind of the background of shots, just super overgrown. Same with here. This was the Father's Day box elder video. So this was all trees, big time. Like you couldn't see through there. This was just solid trees. So that's out. We need to get it stumped and get the roots out of here, get it tilled in, get it leveled out, and we'll seed that at some point. Then similar over here, what we actually did get seeded. So this was all box elders all the way out to right there. And so we got all of that, has taken pretty well with the seed that we put down as a part of the fall renovation. So that's looking nice right through there, and a lot different than you would have seen at one point. I think I have some footage of me coming out from the back section here and looking up this way. So hopefully we can grab that and you can see just the difference. It's awesome. These are some of the biggest sections of improvement that we had. And then back here into the car park. Again, this was all gravel and it just got hopelessly overgrown again. We took this down later in the year and got it cleared out, got it killed off. You would have seen the videos of putting glyphosate on here and the results. So yeah, this is all killed off and ready to hopefully hold into next spring. And we can again maintain this. There's no near-term plans for this section of the yard. There's too much to be done. There's about 6 inches of gravel in here that just aren't going to get accomplished, aren't going to get out for a while now. Into the backyard then, I'm not sure how much I'm going to talk about, what happened in voiceover, but this is it's lost a little bit of color. There's been snow on this grass for like a couple weeks now, but so here we are, where we made it in the backyard for 2019, just kind of the general pan shot, and then we'll get into some of the detail, a little bit more of what we actually accomplished.
Well, I mentioned I wasn't sure how much of this was going to end up being done in voiceover, and for the backyard it turns out a lot, because a lot of my walk around ended up being talking about the overgrowth. But what is in front of your screen, what you are looking at now, is a picture that I took fall of 2018. This would have been weeks, maybe a month within when we moved into our house. So on the left, on the ground, you can see that's not a bush, that's a tree that's come down. So this is looking kind of in the same angle that last shot left off. So I'll flash kind of where we left off, where we got to at the end of the year, and then back here. So there's two trees up front that we had taken down and the stumps ground out, and those are the kind of areas that ended up just being mud the whole time, and you can see just how overgrown. So you look through those two trees, you see all of that brush, that's the box elder and landscaping that we ripped out. Over to the left, you see more of the kind of brush and undergrowth, the box elders and areas that we took out, and that's actually the section that you would have seen that was reseeded. And then you can kind of see I mean, this is like late September, so if a lawn should ever look good, it should be right now. And you can see there's just no color in the grass. There's, you know, weeds all over the place, and it's just not good. So with that, I kind of have just some footage throughout the year, and I'm just going to talk about that as we watch that together. All right, so it is adventure time to go through a bunch of footage. So this was my first video, panning across the backyard, kind of looking at the state it was in the spring as the snow was melting. And you can see here, there was not much there. It was just dirt. All the weeds were gone. So here, this was the first kind of walk through of the yard as it woke up. I use this as kind of like my first living before. So you can see those are skid steer tracks that I filled in, some low spots and some holes. And then you get back into here, and it is so thin. I mean, there was very little here. You know, I remember just stepping in the mud, pitching to my son rather than being on any semblance of grass. And this was just a quick shot of before I started taking the box elders down. So you can see all the junk that was in that overgrown section. And then I think this is early, maybe late June, I think is where this video is from. This is probably one of the best times in the yard here in terms of how it was looking. And you can see here these open dirt sections have started to fill in a little bit. As we get back into the back of the yard, that has started to fill in a little bit. And, you know, this was kind of the part of the year where I really felt like I was starting to gain momentum. I was doing things well and correctly, and everything was kind of going right. And we were getting some victories around this point, and things just kind of felt good. Some of the heat did do a number on this back section. I don't know what it was about this area back here, so where the fruit trees would have come out. I don't really know what it was. I don't know if it's that it was younger grass that came up once the trees were gone, if it's that the root system wasn't able to get established because they had always been underneath the shade of those trees, soil issues, who knows. But this section always struggled with drought, because then we come back up here to kind of the better sections of the backyard, and it's still looking pretty green at this point. And this is right during the summer, right, you know, peak heat for the season, and this section is looking just fine. And then I'm not going to say only blunder, but far and above the worst mistake I made of the season is the accidental killing of my backyard. So here you're looking at where I had treated for problem grasses and where I had not. So you can see on the right side looking healthy as can be, on the left side looking pretty sad, starting to die off. So if you remember that video, if you were around at that time in the channel, I was trying to use Fusilade and Tenacity to deal with crabgrass, quackgrass, you know, whatever sorts of problem grasses I had in the backyard. Unfortunately, I misread the label, and I put the wrong rate of Fusilade in my mix. So I put a ½ ounce of Fusilade per gallon when you were supposed to put like a few tablespoons. I think it's a tablespoon per gallon that you're supposed to use. And obviously anytime you get carried away with herbicides, especially kind of that commercial grade level. So this was 3 weeks after the application, and you can see it is really starting to torch the grass. So basically what I did is without using glyphosate, without using anything that would be intended to kill all the grass, I killed my whole backyard, which was devastating as a stretch because it's just grass, and I knew it was going to come back. But, you know, I'd put so much work and so much effort throughout the year into getting it to where it had gotten, and I was really, really happy with what I'd done. And then just a simple mistake, reading comprehension, and pretty much all that work was gone. So pretty much the only thing I had at this point is I knew, well, okay, this basically means that we are going to renovate now. And I guess that's the plan. So that was what we did. So it was renovation season. Aerated before this footage that you're watching, and then it was a topsoil top dress. So I went with topsoil here rather than sand because I had a lot of holes and that type of thing that I wanted to fill in, and I didn't want there to be just random places in the backyard that had, you know, 4 inches of sand as a whole, because it probably is going to cause some dry spotting issues as the water just runs through that. But we brought in 8 yards of dirt, covered the majority of the backyard, left a little bit so that we had some places for the kids to play that wasn't just a mud pit, and made it look nice. Try to bring it back. The backyard is Scott's Sun and Shade mix, which is tall fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, and ryegrass. So that was what this was seeded with, as well as some of the old grass that grew back up through. And then that's me there dragging around my wood drag. That was what I had built for myself. The video I have is definitely far and above the most successful video on my channel. So if you haven't checked out, you can look at that. But the thing works really well for what it is. You know, 40, 50 bucks, put that together. Now I have a nice little drag I can use going forward. And then this is the last paint of the year, October 14th, 2019, when it was still looking pretty healthy. It had all filled back in and kind of given me that hope again that, okay, this is where I get to start 2020, and it's going to be awesome.
So then going into the side yard, much like the trees in the front, we didn't do anything to make these super pretty, but we brought all those wood chips in here to kind of get it a little bit more manicured. Again, this was all way, way overgrown at one point. Got it all cut down and taken care of. This section didn't recover from the kill, the accidental kill, as well as the other sections did, because it didn't get treated as well, didn't get watered as well. This was kind of just left to be. Over here, along the neighbor's lot, this I introduced as kind of the death ledge before it was finished, but now finished retaining wall. And so there was, right at the top of the hill there was a massive tree that was taken out, and landscapers came out and regraded it, dug that stump out, and planted seed for us, which I never watered, never fertilized, never did anything. And that's right up in here, this grass right here. That was seeded in, I don't know, August, early August. Never touched, never watered, never anything. And that's what we got. And swinging over into the greatest success of the year, which is the kill, till, and seed in the front here. So earlier in the year, this would have all been mud, and it's still mud out there. The weeds took over, but it's still mud there. All mud from the well. There was a fence here and a couple more bushes. Those have been taken out. Still no landscaping, but we'll get there. And then this was seeded with Seed Superstore Kentucky Bluegrass. And I followed along, showed you that whole process. And this is what we have now. Still a little bit of yellow and rust damage from the disease. We'll have to be a little bit more proactive in that next year. But this came in extremely well. Planted in the summer, so it was an experiment in seeding in the summer. So that's what we got. And then really, the rest of the front yard was largely left alone. So not really a whole lot to report on up there.
So like I've talked about, and you would have seen on the channel if you've been watching along, not a whole lot happened in the front yard. Just that section that we seeded. Everything else we left basically alone because we're going to kill all of it and reseed to that Seed Superstore mix. But right here on your screen is last fall when we moved into the house. This is what the front looked like. You can see that pine tree has branches all the way to the ground. That's what every pine tree on the property looked like. We cut those up. And then the landscaping almost literally blocks off the whole front of the house. Like you can barely even see it. And then a second image here is a Google Earth view that would have been taken, well, I guess not Google Earth, Street View of a drive-by of the house. This is a wide-angle lens. It makes it look like our house is a lot deeper, but kind of you see the same thing. So this is before the neighbor's lot would have come in. So you see the big tree on the left. That's what was taken down and reseeded by the contractors when they put the retaining wall in. And that main tree in the front that was taken down. And then you can still see all of the overgrown landscaping in the back. And then this picture I took on December 6th. So this is the way the front of the house looks now. Now it looks a little barren, and it's a little bit kind of browned out because, again, this is December and we had snow on the ground all November. And the grass that you can see here, we haven't done anything to. But just the progress that we've made in just getting the property under control is something that I'm pretty proud of here. So with that, we'll get into kind of the video overview like I did for the backyard. All right, so right from the start, this was the first video on the channel, and you can kind of just see the mud again. And then I wanted to include this because the driveway, I don't think had probably been edged in years. So it was nice to get that edge of the driveway sharpened up. I mean, you can see here, I'm picking up probably like two inches of driveway, which was nice. And it just looks so much better now that we actually have the full width, got that kind of sharp edge on the whole driveway. And then we get into killing. So we killed that section. We're going to continue to do that in the front yard section by section. Brought out the heavy guns, the Roundup and the Spectracide weed and grass killer. And then here again, this is kind of what it was looking like before we got it all ripped out, tilled up. And then there's the dirt. So you can see it. We got it tilled and it was ready to get seeded. There's that tree again, another shot of what it looked like before they seeded it. And then again here, the dirt. This is just an update I did at one point just to kind of show the progress in the front. And then we get to dragging. So this was, again, I talked about it in the backyard when we were looking at that. Definitely the most popular video on the channel. You can check that out. The little wood drag I built, and we just drag and drag and drag and drag and drag until I can't drag anymore. And then it was a matter of, okay, can we do the right cultural things? Can we do the right things and get grass to grow through July and August? And it was hot for these months. It was 100 a couple days, you know, well up into the 90s. And it germinated. And actually this Seed Superstar Kentucky Bluegrass germinated. This was like day 9 or 10. And, you know, typically KBG is way up there in terms of, like, you know, 3 weeks to germinate. This is another look down that retaining wall when they finally got that put in. And again, this is what I had talked about where I didn't maintain this at all. I didn't water it, I didn't fertilize it, and you saw in the walk around that, you know, this all came right in and was looking great. And the seed didn't come in without flaw. I had Purslane take over this section bad. You know, this is far from the worst it ever was. And then it all came in. Lawn egg toss challenge, which is a great idea. So cool that came out, but you can just see how good this stuff came in, how good it looked at this point. Super happy. And it was thick enough to catch an egg. And then, you know, some of the stripes on it from the new mower. It is going to look incredible. When the whole yard's looking like this, it's going to be so good. And then here's just kind of another view from the front when we had the wide boy stripes on there. And then the last look at the top. I mean, that stuff just looks so good. And that new mower is striping good. And man, 2020 is going to be a great year. Cannot wait for it.
And that's it. Much like I've said for every video, thank you so much for watching. A couple things. Going forward through the winter, we're going to move our efforts inside, so I'll probably have some videos of what we're doing inside the house to get that better. Since wintertime I can't be out here doing anything, so we might as well make the inside of the house look a little better. So we'll follow along. We'll have some videos come out in there, and just kind of odds and ends, maintenance on equipment if I get into doing any of that, and just the work inside. So with that, thanks for watching. We will see you next time, and probably next spring.